Rolex finally speaks out in response to a recurrent supply deficit. As the Crown said, the scarcity of our products is not a strategy. Here's one thing for sure though, Rolex did not create the scarcity on purpose, but they sure do their best to keep it that way. What's noteworthy is that several authorized merchants we contacted said they aren't necessarily receiving fewer Rolex watches than they were a few years ago. The difference is in the demand, causing retailers and customers alike to be upset when supply falls short of demand. One could argue that the Rolex client base has shifted and expanded. A lot of people from the younger age are buying and wearing Rolex watches these days, which wasn't the case a decade ago. The Crown is notorious for rarely commenting on the record, preferring instead to let their products speak for themselves. However, Rolex has become a cause of increasing frustration for purchases around the world, with their most prized designs nearly hard to find at retail, something that was not always the case. As a result, customers have been complaining about the scarcity of Rolex watches for years. But although the topic has been discussed in almost every watch forum and journal, Rolex has been silent on the subject until now. Since the height of the pandemic in 2020, a lot of businesses dipped and had shortages around the globe. From cars to the microchips that go into them, to coffee beans and even toilet paper. The pandemic supply crunch fueled much of this, and this goes even for high-end wristwatches. Are you ready? Stay with us until the end of this video as Rolex Watch Shortage is explained. So what's up with Rolex and what happened to the cause of this scarcity? Hang in there and together let's all find out. Rolex is the most well-known watch brand in the world. Regardless of where you are in the globe or who you mention the brand to, the vast majority of people will be familiar with it. Rolex is a very powerful firm that has done an excellent job creating its brand and identity on the market. Rolex watches are now considered the ultimate emblem of prosperity. Hello and welcome back to our channel, and for this episode we will get to know the real reasons behind the insufficiency of this luxurious timepiece. With no further ado, let us answer the big question. What is it about the most renowned sports models that have authorized Rolex shops having year-long waiting lists? What year did this fad start? As you can imagine, the Rolex scenario has not always been as it is now, when you can rarely buy a professional Rolex watch from an authorized Rolex merchant without waiting years. It's tough to pinpoint a precise date, but the release date of Rolex's Daytona 116500LN at Baselworld in 2016 was a clear turning point. The Rolex Daytona has always been an iconic piece with a special position in history and a significant role in the Rolex brand history. But when Rolex launched a ceramic bezel version of the Daytona with a white or black dial, this was confirmed even further. The Rolex shortage didn't start exactly at this moment. At this point, the general public began to discuss the year-long waiting list for this model. Speculations began, and the obsession grew as those who were among the first to get them increased in demand. People began to notice the long lines and scarcity of this particular watch. And the problem is that we humans are continuously wanting things that we can't have. As a result, individuals are even more inclined and ready to obtain one. And obviously it is easy to see why the Daytona 116500 is known as the watch that began it all. It's new, it's exciting, it's extraordinarily memorable, and definitely hard to catch. Moving forward, today, the Rolex shortage also includes essentially all full stainless steel sports watches such as the Submariner, Explorer, Sea Dweller, GMT Master 2, and more. Now let us tell you what's intriguing is that Rolex Sports versions aren't all that uncommon. Let me tell you a fact, but before that, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you'll get the latest updates from our channel. Done? Great! Here it is. Rolex watches are mass manufactured, with around 1 million watches produced each year. Meaning, there are a plethora of timepieces available on the secondary market. It's only that in recent years, demand has greatly outpaced supply, resulting in a shortage, regardless of how many are available. Well, nobody knows the exact production numbers, although it's thought to be around 500,000 watches per year. The clear and short answer to why there is a scarcity of Rolex professional models, especially stainless steel sports versions, is that demand outnumbers supply. In other words, the quantity of timepieces produced by Rolex is still not enough. Keep in mind that we're discussing new Rolex watches that the company produces and distributes to its authorized dealers. Isn't it crazy? 500,000 watches each year still ain't enough. Wow! But if you really want to purchase your Rolex watch now and you've been too anxious with this news, don't fret. Now, for this is the only case for new Rolex watches from authorized dealers. You still have the choice of going through the second-hand marketplace, and there you'll be able to find hundreds of sports and professional Rolex models available for purchase. But this brings us to the next point, and that is pricing. When it comes to the pricing of stainless steel sorts Rolex watches, this is where it gets interesting. We all know that this supply and demand proportion could mean tweaks and twists to the price tags. While stainless steel Rolex watches have been in short supply, two-tone and even whole gold Rolex watches have been increasingly fashionable and difficult to come by. This ties in with what we have said earlier. When consumers can't get their hands on stainless steel versions, they go for the next best thing, which may be a two-tone Submariner. There are numerous ideas as to why stainless steel sports Rolex watches are so difficult to obtain. Remember that these are not our ideas. Rather, we are sharing what others believe is the cause of the Rolex professional scarcity. FOMO, or fear of missing out, and scarcity have a great effect on us humans. Like we've mentioned earlier, we always want what we cannot have, and scarcity has great importance for the perception of luxury. For example, if you can see 10 Submariners standing in the window, would you be equally as inclined to buy as if there was only one in the window? Ah, human nature. And all of these consequences are incredibly excellent for the brand, and Rolex could have recognized this and said, "What's happening is fantastic for the firm. What can we do to keep it going?" As a result, they may now alter the quantity of watches produced to ensure that demand is never met. Because a limited supply leads to high demand, exclusivity, and brand reputation being enhanced. So you might be thinking, when will this Rolex watch shortage ever end? This is a question that no one really knows the answer to. At this point, it does not appear that anything will change anytime soon. Keep in mind, however, that Rolex watches are luxury items, and they tend to be the most expensive when the economy is slowing. As a matter of fact, demand for Rolex watches is likely to fall, and as a result, supply of these watches will naturally suffer. Only time will tell how much or how little this may affect the supply of stainless steel timepieces. And that ends our episode for today. Thank you for watching, and click on our next video for more Rolex related news. See you next time in Above First Class.